Hello YouTube, my name is Ricky and this is my very first video. Today I would like to talk about how I use Tmux to manage more than one project. So I'm a JavaScript developer mainly on the UI, and occasionally I'll do other types of work like I'm currently creating some lambdas. And I like to use Tmux in my workflow. So I'll create a session for one of my front-end projects. I'll create a session for a Lambda project. I have several front-end projects. I may create more than one session for each one of those, and I leave these running so that I can switch back and forth between them as I need to do work on each one. One of the problems you may run into if you do a workflow like this is if you run servers, you may run into a problem where you have a port conflict because you're running the same port in multiple projects. If that's the case, you'll have to work around that by either setting one of the projects to an alternative port or bring that server down while you bring the other one up in the other project, whatever works best for you. Other than that, this works pretty well, at least for me, and I haven't seen many people talking about it, so I thought I'd make a video describing how it works, and if all goes well, I'll make some other videos along the similar line that we're talking about today. I'd like to talk about maybe some developer tools, tips and tricks, various languages. I'm a JavaScript developer at my day job. In my spare time, I'm learning Rust. I know various other languages, shell scripting, C, C++, Perl, Python, PHP. I may not go into all of those languages, but I'll be looking for topics to dive into, and programming is one of the things that I enjoy doing. I am a long-time Vim user, relatively new Emacs user, and maybe I'll make some videos about that, and also maybe some technology news related to development that I find interesting. But on to today's video. If you're not familiar with Tmux, I have a couple of resources that I would share with you. One of them is a YouTube video that I watched not too long ago. I've been using Tmux for a long time, but I'm always looking for more tips and tricks. And this one I kind of enjoyed watching. It's by Tutorial Linux, and it's called Basic Tmux Tutorial. I'll put a link to this in the description below. The other is a book that I bought many years ago, back when it was version 1. It looks like they have created a new version 2 of this book. It's by Brian P. Hogan. It's called Tmux Productive Mouse-Free Development. Very good book. It goes into detail about what Tmux is, what its features are, how to install it, how to configure it. I would highly recommend picking it up if you're new to Tmux development and want to know the ins and outs of how Tmux works and how it can be used in your workflow. So what I would like to show you specifically about Tmux, this is not going to be a what is Tmux and how does it work kind of video. This is going to be more advanced for those people that already kind of have an idea what Tmux is and are already using it, just wanting to figure out better ways to use it. I have a couple of scripts that I will be sharing with you today for managing multiple projects. So let me just quickly give you a tutorial or demonstration of how I use it in my workflow, and then I will share with you the scripts and go over them line by line. As I mentioned, however, I am learning Rust, and I have upgraded one of my scripts into Rust because I was looking for something to do, and so I wrote a Rust program to do what my script was doing. It does exactly the same thing, it's just doing it in Rust as opposed to the script, and that's what I'm going to be doing because it's in my path, and so that's what's going to run when I execute it. So I'm learning Rust, so I'm just going to make a couple of projects very quickly to kind of simulate what you might do in your day job or your workflow. So I have 2 projects here. I'm going to jump into project 1, and I'm going to run my script, which is now my REST program that I've named cleverly dev. That's going to create a dev environment for this project 1. And the dev environment is just a Tmux session. You can see it picked up the directory name project 1, and that's what it called the session, and it made 5 windows. It's 0-based indexed. So the first window, 0, is called server because I almost always have some sort of a server that I'm running that I want to monitor the log output of, and so I run that in the 0 window. The number 1 window is where I'll be doing some sort of a front-end compilation, usually Angular at work. It needs to be compiled, so I'll run that in this window. I'll run the tests in the second window. I'll run a code editor, it's Vim, in the third one. And in the fourth one is where I'll run various shell scripts, terminal commands, git commands, things of that nature in the last one. So now I have this session. I'm going to switch to the third window. Well, you know what I mean. It's number 3 where it says code. It's throwing me off that it's 0-based index, but bear with me. I'm in the code window, and I'm going to edit some code because I want to have some context for switching to various sessions within Tmux. So I'm going to make this project 1. I'm going to save it. I'm going to switch to the 0 window, and I'm going to build and run this, and it's going to say project 1. Okay, so now I've done some work here in the project 1, and I want to switch to project 2. So I'm going to detach from this by hitting prefix D. The prefix default is Control B. I've changed mine to Control Space, whatever works best for you. So Control B D for detach. We'll detach from the window, from the Tmux session. My Rust application outputs each of the commands that it's going to run. I did this for debugging purposes, but it's also handy to see what it did. We'll go over line by line the script that I've created that does almost exactly this set of commands, but I just wanted to point that out while we're here. I'm going to change to my project 2 directory. I'm going to run dev again, and it does exactly the same thing as it did before, except for now it's in project 2 directory. So it's named the Tmux Session project 2. It's made the same set of windows, server, UI, test, code, and ZSH. I'm going to change to the third code window. I'm going to edit the code. I'm going to change this to project 2. I'm going to save it. Go back to the 0 window. I'm going to build it and run it. And you can see that says project 2. I've got a code editor in the third pane there. Third window called code. And I'm going to detach from this window, and you can see a similar output, except for instead of project 1, it says project 2. And I can run dev again because I'm in the project 2 directory. It's going to not create the session, but attach to it this time. So I'm back in project 2. I'm back in the pane that I left off on. Back in the window that I left, the code window. I can change back to the 0 window, and you can see the output of the run. It says project 2. I can hit prefix S, which will give me a list of sessions, S for sessions, and you can see I've got project 1 and project 2. I can use my arrow keys to go up and down, or I can use Vim bindings, so I can use J and K to go up and down. So I'm going to change to the project 1. It will put me where I left off in the 0 window where I ran the project, and it says project 1. I still have my editor and the index 3 window, and it has project 1 there in the editor. I can detach from this window. I can change back to the project 1 directory. and run dev again, and it will attach me to the project 1 session. So you can see here we're back in the project 1 session, or again I can do prefix S and switch that way. I have one other way I want to show you, but before I get there, I will show you the code for this dev script that I've been running. So I've been running a Rust version of this, but this is what it does identically, line for line. It does have some code for detecting what directory you're in and naming the session thusly, but that's the only difference between the Rust program and this script. I will link the Rust program that I have in the description below, as well as this script. So what's happening here is it runs Tmux has session, and it looks to see if there is a session by this name. And if it finds one, it attaches. So when we were in the project directory and we ran dev, it found, well, the first time it created it, but the second time it found the session and went ahead and attached to it. So the first time we ran it, though, it did not find the session. So it created a new session. It named it project and made a window by the name of server. Then it made these 3 other windows for front-end test and CSH. And then these next couple of commands will change to the window and pane and run a particular set of commands in that window and pane. So this first number is the window and the second number is the pane. So you can create split windows in Tmux. That doesn't really work for me. I like to have full screen windows, but that is an option you can do. And if you do create multiple panes by splitting the windows, you can tell Tmux which window and which pane you would like to run your commands. Now I put 2 commands in this one just to demonstrate how you can run multiple commands in line. If you do have more than a couple of commands you want to run, though, you should probably consider a script that you would run. Then you terminate the command with this CM, and then you have these other ones where it will run a script or a command, in window 1, window 2, and window 3. Then we have this final line which says, okay, I've created all the windows, I've run all of the commands. Now I want to change to the 0 window and the 0 pane, and then we're going to attach to it. So that's how this script works to create very quickly a Tmux session and a project directory that you might have. You can create a common one like I like to do, which I put in my bin directory, and I can just run it from anywhere. So I'll create a project directory, run dev, and it will create these sets of windows. And it's kind of a common set of windows that I'll use for each project. Or you can customize a script, include it in your project, and it will be fine-tuned. Maybe you don't want all of these windows, or you want more windows, or different windows, or combinations of windows and panes, and maybe you want to run various different kinds of scripts. The sky's the limit. You can have very customized scripts that you would use per project, or you can have a common one like I prefer to do. So that's how I create my Tmux sessions for my various projects. One last thing I want to show you is if you detach from a session and you change to another directory to do some other work that's not related to any of those projects, and you want to get back to one of those Tmux sessions when you're ready to get back to it, you can do Tmux list session and see what's available, and then you can run some Tmux attach session and give it the session you want to attach to. That's just a lot of typing, and developers are notoriously lazy, myself included. So I created a script called TM for Tmux, and I can run that, and it will give me an index of sessions that are running in Tmux, and I can choose one of these numbers and it will just attach to it. So if I want to attach to project 2, I hit the 2 and it puts me in project 2 back into the window that I left off on. So if I change to the index 3 window there, you can see my Vim is still running with the project 2's code, and I can detach from that and run TM again. I can go to the first project. You can see I'm in project 1 and got the project 1 code running here in Vim. You can detach, and if I see that I want a project 3, for example, and I haven't created it yet, I can escape from this by hitting like any other key besides 1 or 2. I can just hit Q, for example. I think I can just hit enter. No, I have to hit something. So Q is generally what I hit, and it'll just drop me back into the terminal, and then I can run dev, for example, in the project 3 directory, and it will create a new Tmux session there. That's just another really handy way to jump back into a Tmux session when you have multiple sessions running. Just wanted to share that with you. Let me show you what that code looks like. So this is a function that I put in my ZSHRC. If you run bash, you can put it in your bash RC, and it's called TM, and what it does is it runs tmux ls-f and creates an index for each one of those lines that it returns, and then waits for you to select one of the numbers, one of the indexes. If you select a number that is in the list, it will attach to that session. If you hit something not in that list, it will tell you you didn't make an appropriate choice and drop you back to the terminal. And then you can create a new session or go on about your way doing whatever else you need to do. That's a very simple script. You can just drop that into your environment and give you a really handy way to attach back to a session. Between these two scripts for creating a session and attaching to it, it streamlines your multiple project workflow, especially if you use Tmux to manage them. And I just wanted to share that with you. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to this channel and giving a thumbs up. And we'll see you in the next video.